Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah. I guess.
You guess?
Doesn't really register for us or you guys.
All right.
Phil, if there's one thing you could kind of point to that has hurt you guys in the red zone from getting touchdowns the last 2 weeks, what would it be?
There isn't one thing. I mean, I think, at least referring to Georgia Tech, we had some opportunities. You know, I think we're probably like 60-40 throwing and running in the red zone, so we're fairly diverse there. We had opportunities in the run game, and we probably took advantage of more of those opportunities, meaning we were more efficient and more productive in the run game down there than we were in the pass game. That hasn't been the story most of the season. You know, we had a really tight throw and missed catch in the corner of the end zone on the rollout. We had Josh Downs on one that we didn't trigger. You know, there's a couple things I thought it's hard to pinpoint one. I thought we just had a few things. There was one on the O-line. There was one with Drake. There was a drop ball. We just had a multitude of things down there that affected us. And you know, we were down there enough, and I thought we did a good job of moving the football. And you know, for the most part, we need to make some better decisions, and we just need to execute better down there, especially in that game, because one touchdown out of those red zone drives, and it probably gives you the win. You know, and I know a lot of people want to talk about Josh's drop, but that's one play, you know, in comparison to everything he's brought to this football team, you know, throughout the season. And there are a multitude of different plays that we could have made in the red zone earlier in the game, and we wouldn't have been in that situation at the end of the game. So obviously, it's getting addressed. It's something that we're looking at this morning. We got a good practice in, and you know, now the focus is on North Carolina State. But I think the one thing in referring back to the Georgia Tech game is we try to take some of the things that we didn't get done there. You try to make that game work for you with regards to preparing for NC State.
Where does the need for maybe greater physicality play into some of the red zone issues, not just with execution, but maybe with some of your play calling as well?
So you said physicality?
Yeah. Mac was saying a little while ago that the offense needs to be more physical, and that shows up a lot in the red zone. So where does that kind of factor into the red zone issues?
Well, the one area you can't hide if you're not being physical is in the red zone. We actually ran the ball fairly well in the red zone in this game. There was nothing explosive down there in the run game, but you know, we knocked down the first downs we needed. We got ourselves 3, 4, 5 yards in the low red and set us up for a second non-obvious situation. Those things were good, but there's physicality in pass pro as well. And you know, and I think in this game in particular against North Carolina State, either you're going to win the physical battle or you're not going to win the game. And you know, I kind of liken this to our Pittsburgh game. You know, our Pittsburgh game, you don't beat Pittsburgh, you don't play Pittsburgh and defeat them without being physical, because of how physical and how violent they are up front. And NC State's the same way. We think it's potentially the best, if one of the best, if not the best defense that we've seen this year. And the violence and the physicality part is their biggest strength.
With respect to pass pro, what has been the issue in the last month or so? The stacks are starting to stack up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's been an issue the last month or so. I think we had some individual breakdowns. We gave up a couple sacks at Wake, and we gave up a couple, you know, we had 2 successive sacks at Wake with Spencer Rowan. We got beat individually at the guard spot, Wayne Barnes one time, Spencer Rollins one time. I think we were credited with 6. 2 of them were, one was a draw, one was a scramble, one was a pull throw on a run play. You know, so from an O-line standpoint, we had 3. And in this particular game, it happened to be 3 one-on-one matchups that we lost. You know, there's 2 others out of the 6 also that Drake could pull the trigger quicker and maybe hit the first look and not hold the ball, or maybe trigger it after the pull. And like I said, and I've heard Coach Brown say this too, sacks are not just O-line driven. Sacks are receiver, RB, tight end. I mean, everybody has a responsibility there in the passing game, and I would say 3 from this last week, 3 more than we want, and 3 more that weren't necessary that we gave up. And that's going to be, I mean, that same battle, those same one-on-one battles are going to need to be won this week against NC State because we're going to have those same matchups. We'll get them help, and you can move Drake, but for the most part, we've been really, really happy with our pass protection. I think this week just needs to see a return to the physicality up front that we've had for the majority of the season.
You mentioned Drake. How would you evaluate his game overall? Obviously, it was just statistically his worst performance of the season.
You know, I think he'd tell you, and I agree, it wasn't one of his better games. I think we probably had more things in this game that we want to address than we have had in the past. And, you know, in tight games like this and important games, and they're all important at this point because of where we are in the season and what our record is, you have these little things that we talk about all the time, as coach speak as it sounds, these little things, footwork, route integrity, you know, staying quiet with your feet in the pocket, you know, all of these little things, protecting inside out on a particular pressure, all of these little things we have been getting better at weekly, Ross, and last week we did not handle some of those little things well. And that's why we were so close all the time. We're moving the ball and we have an opportunity to put a stamp on a drive, and you know, as a collective group, and really we didn't handle some of those little things. And at the end of the day, that comes back to me. So I have to make sure that those little things we're paying attention to them and we're getting them done right during practice, because what we do during the week is going to translate on game day, and that's no different this week.
How did Mr. Green affect play calling, wide receivers in general?
Yeah, you know, I think anytime you have a guy that's a proven commodity with the deep ball or crossers or just throwing to in general, you know, when you lose a guy like that, you're losing one of your weapons. Gavin Blackwell he stepped in and did a good job on the underneath stuff. We weren't able to connect with him downtown on the deep stuff. That's probably where we missed Antoine the most. We have done a good job in the past, earlier in the season when he and Josh Downs were out. But he'll be back, and you'll have Copenhagen back, and I think we're probably as close to healthy as we have been in the last 3-4 weeks.
So before the season, you told this story about Drake and ping pong at the recruiting event. Love that story. Is there anything throughout the year, competitive-wise, about Drake, stories like that stand out? Anything that's happened?
Well, relative to that story, I think you get yourself on the football field and you're super competitive and you want to make a play on every play. You know, and as you start to progress through the passing game, the tricky part for Drake, because he's so dang competitive, is that he wants to make something positive happen on every down. And he did a really good job most of the season. You know, you fight that fight of wanting to extend the play with your legs and make something happen or create something. And it's hard when you're that competitive, if I'm making sense here, to know when to reel it in and not hold the ball too long. Know when to reel it in and not run around too much. You know, you gotta kind of police yourself. There's a time in every play where, you know, it's time. Maybe the best thing in the play is to throw it away. Maybe the best thing in the play is to get north and go get your 2 or 3 yards and line up on 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 8 and manage. And then we call it damage control. And in every football game, and you know, throughout 60 to 70, 80 plays, you know, for an offensive unit in a game, there's going to be plays that schematically don't work, and you've got to manage them the right way. We call them damage control plays, and that's a huge part of playing quarterback. And I think when you see guys get in trouble, it's that competitive nature, that ultra competitiveness that they have that makes them want to hold the ball or run around and do some things that are going to turn into negative plays. And for the most part, I think Drake's done a good job of not doing that. I think he knows when it's time to get rid of the football or it's time to go down and not put ourselves in a negative situation.
That's it. You can bring that up, because during the game, I kind of felt like he was managing it that way, kind of where you're talking, like buying this time. Hey, we haven't lost this game yet. We still got a chance. And then maybe that moment to strike never came. He was taking the ball back at the end. I mean, how did you feel in that specific game he did with that? And maybe he was there a moment you should have taken a risk and made that big play?
I thought there was a couple he could have triggered some things quicker. You know, he'd tell you the same thing. I thought there was a few pass plays where we may have had the quick hitter right now, and then we held it for something a little bit longer. I don't think it was from a selfishness standpoint or anything. I think what we got to do is we got to understand, like when something's open for 3 or 4, you know, and we talk about that every week. You just need to take it, you know, because those are positive plays, and you're not holding the football. And it's always easy to say, wow, you know what, let's hold this thing because you had that 10-yarder down the field. There's no guarantee, though, that protection is not going to break down. There's no guarantee that he's going to stay open. And you don't know he's open until you progress there. So in our offense, as soon as something is there and we can complete it for positive yardage, the ball should come out. That takes hits off our quarterback, it takes pressure off the offensive line, it gets the ball to our skill guys as quick as we can in open space, and that's really how we operate, and that's where we need to stay, particularly going into Friday's game with how physical and they are up front and how well they rush the passer.
Phil, maybe with the ball maybe not coming out as quickly as it should have been against Georgia Tech, was that, Drake was saying that Josh was doubled pretty much the whole day. Do you think just, you know, I know defensively have shown a lot of attention to Josh, but do you think the way Tech played him led to maybe some of, I don't want to say indecision, but some of the way Drake went about his reads and everything?
I don't think it led to indecision. I think what happened was that we have some plays that we're used to Josh Downs getting open. And, you know, we put him at wide out, they doubled him. We put him at slot, they doubled him. We motioned him, they doubled him. You know, we brought him out of the backfield. It was about the only time they couldn't double him, which is why we went to that play towards the end of the game to match him up with one guy. But when those happen, you know, and people have to understand, like, when Josh Downs is getting double teamed, we're now playing 10-on-9 football, you know, and we've got individual matchups elsewhere. And Antoine and the tight end, and Cody Paysour and Gavin, they've done JJ, they've done a good job throughout the season of taking advantage of some of those one-on-one situations when Josh is, you know, attracting more attention. We didn't make as many of those plays on Saturday, and, you know, that's part of the reason that we didn't score more. I think to point out one thing for the Georgia Tech game is kind of hard to do because there was a multitude of things. But that is, you know that going in, that they're going to make that kind of legitimate commitment to taking Josh away, which it would make sense to me for everybody to try to do that. That's fine. Then the other guys have to make some plays, and I think we're very capable. The Georgia Tech game certainly is not a great representation of how we've been playing the rest of the year.
Coach,
We've got time for one more.
what will you and the guys kind of focus on in practice this week to kind of work out those kinks ahead of the short week for NC State?
I mean, the primary focus is on what NC State's doing, you know, and they are exceptional on defense. And, you know, they're very physical. And so we're locked in on that. And I also think we addressed some of the little things that we didn't do at Georgia Tech. And we tried to refine some of them today and correct some of them today. And I really think that this game against Georgia Tech for this team, and Isaac can speak specifically to the offense, I think it can benefit us if we learn from the mistakes that we made in that game. And I think if we do that and we're able to correct some of those things and get back to playing the way we did, where we're in a rhythm most of the year, then I think that bodes well for us heading into NC State.
Phil, with thank you, Jeremy. With the running backs, I'm raising my hand.
Yeah.
I mean, the running backs, you got all sorts of running backs in there against Georgia Tech. I don't know if, like, that was by design or by feel or whatever, but, you know, we're looking up and there's Omarion, there's George catching a ball, there's DJ carrying the ball. Like, what just led into that, getting so many more guys involved at that position than you have been lately?
You know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, we kind of felt like 6 or 7 weeks ago it was Caleb. 4 or 5 weeks ago it became Elijah. And, you know, you run with those guys. But you get into games where we're very up-tempo, or you get into games where we have more snaps, or you get into games where, you know, Elijah's carried it for the last 5 plays, those types of things. We still have a lot of confidence in DJ and in Petway, so we just used them in the game. And when we needed to spell Elijah, you roll the next one in there. And for a while there, when you were trying to figure out who it was going to be, you know, we kind of used them by what their specialty was. You know, DJ is a great pass blocker, but he also runs the ball well, and he's an excellent receiver. You know, George just happened to be in the rotation there, and so, you know, caught a real important ball for us on the drive. And so right now, I think we feel good about all of them. Elijah's still the lead dog for us, but I think you'll see DJ and George as we move forward here the last few games.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Phil,
you.
thank you.